welcome to Thin-nology. My name is John Bowling. I'm president. Today we're going to talk about our managed backup services. We're quite different in that we don't just provide backup services, we provide managed backup services. Managed backup services is where we go in every day and check on the night before backups and make sure that all of them have run and completed successfully. Now, the way we're able to determine whether they actually ran and completed is when we look at the file size, if it has changed by kilobits even, because some of the changes that you make during the day only amount to kilobits of changes, then we can tell if that file was used and it was backed up, then the size will have changed from the day before. So every day we go in and we check every backup to make sure every file backed up. If it hasn't, then we manually go in and back up that file again. If we see that you're actually using the file, we'll call you and ask if you just stopped using that application or that file for a few moments while we run the backup to get it, to make sure that we have it from the day before. Now, the other thing that's quite different, you'll see a lot of backup services today leave a box on your local network, and they back up your data to that box overnight, and then the following day they move the data across the internet to their off-site servers. What we do is we install an applet on your server, and then we perform the backup by transferring your data from your server directly to our first inline backup server, shown on this screen as backup server 1. Now, what this applet does is it prepares your backup for transfer across the internet. So it reserves space on your local server, and it moves all of the data to be backed up. It moves it to a file, and once in that file, it encrypts that entire file. So when we move the data across the internet, all of that data is encrypted. So we start with your server, we prepare the backup, we encrypt it, and we move it to backup server number 1. Once all of the backups have been completed to backup server number 2, then we move all of those backups, we don't move, we make a copy of all of those backups to backup server number 2. So now we have essentially 2 live copies of your backup from the day before. So backup server number 1 is the primary, it's the one that's talking to your servers, and then backup server number 2 is getting all of the data from backup server number 1 and backing it up again. Now, the next thing we do is at the end of every 30 days, we take the backups from the backup servers, move them to hard drives, and send them off to a secure storage facility. We call it, in Austin, Texas, that's a little company called SafeSite. But here we send those hard drives to SafeSite, where they're stored for at least a year, even longer if it's so required. We do have backups going back 10, 12 years stored at this facility right now. And we have gone back and restored some files that are that old. So it just depends on the program you want to contribute to as to what we do. But typically, like I said, the amount of time spent in the off-site backup facility, storage facility is about a year. Now, as for live backups that are available for recovery on the databases, then we typically have 90 days, 45 days, sorry, on SQL servers, 90 days on other database servers, and 90 days on flat files. The reason that we cut down the number of days on SQL Server on the live servers is it really does get to be cumbersome trying to recover data from SQL servers that get into that age. And the other thing, remember, is we've always got another copy of those SQL Server backups at our facility, a SafeSite facility here in Austin. So if they're needed, if they're older and we need to get them, then we can go there and get them. Now, one of the other things that we have here to ensure that we do get your backups every night is we have what's called a high availability network system. So our connections to the internet We own our own data center here at Thin-nology, so we manage everything ourselves. So, of course, the connections to the internet are very important, not just for backup, but for all of the other services that we provide. But in terms of using them for backup, then, it just gives us that added peace of mind, that added scope, that if we, in the event that we should lose one connection to one service provider, then the other one does pick up. And of course, all service providers are managing and upgrading and updating their systems. So there are times in the middle of the night when one of the providers might be down for an hour or 2 hours. We're never down. If one provider's down, then it automatically picks up to the next provider. So we can always be sure that we've got continual connection to the internet to make sure that we've got those backups for you. So, one of the keys to our success, as I mentioned before, in the backup world, we've never trusted technology, still don't. It might sound strange. I personally have a patent in artificial intelligence, so obviously I've written a lot of software in my career that would suggest that I really do rely on technology. And of course, we all do, but we just don't trust it that well. We're always of the opinion, and especially having written so much software in my life, we make typos writing letters, we make typos running programs or writing programs. So what types of files do we back up? You can pretty much any type of flat file, database files, Exchange servers, all of the normal things that you would see running in your business. So in addition to that, we do back up NAS devices, QNAP, and others. So we do have plugins to back up NAS devices. But in addition to that, also, of course, is the Hyper-V VHDs. These are the software copies of your server. If you're running, like most companies today are running, they've got a physical server, but they have virtual servers running inside it. Then we do offer to back up those Hyper-Vs as well. Now, while we're on the subject of SQL servers especially, when it comes to backing up your SQL server, we typically back up the backup that is provided by the vendor. So every vendor whose product runs on a SQL server does a backup of that SQL server every night. And we back up what's called the .BAK, which is a SQL server backup file. The reason for this is many vendors will not allow third-party restorations of their backups. So if we were to do a SQL backup using our software to do that, and when we go to the vendor and say we need to recover this, they'll look straight away for their .BAK. When we tell them, well, we haven't used yours, we've used our own, then they won't support us. So I would say 99 times out of 100, we're going to be backing up that vendor.BAK. Okay, the one thing you should note is that even though we go in and we look and we manage and we log and tells us everything gets backed up. So the other type of application databases, there's quite a few of them. There's even flat file, Fox databases, Microsoft's other product databases. There's a number of different databases that are out there. We back them all up, but again, a lot of the times, even on some of these other application databases, we're going to do a backup of the vendor backup. So the vendor runs a backup of the instance of their database, puts it out there in a folder, and we back up that folder. That's like I said, that's just to make sure that when it comes time to do restores if necessary, then we're in good shape. How long does it take? It's always a good question, but especially backing up across the internet. But with today's internet, that does not seem to be, the criteria of not getting a backup anymore. In the early days when we started doing this, 15, 17 years ago, the bandwidth was so poor on the internet, we had to use what's called T1s. That's not the case anymore. So the longest pole in the tent gets to be really taking your local server and preparing that file and encrypting it, and then moving it across the internet. Typically, we're talking 30 to 45 minutes. Bigger files, with your larger customers, the more files that you have to back up. If you've got 2-3 gig of data saved that night or more, then obviously it's going to take a longer time. But unless you're backing up terabytes, we're going to be able to get it all in one night. And that would be a fairly large organization that has a terabyte of incremental data to contend with during the day. Advertising agencies and stuff like that, the folks that come to mind, where they're doing a lot of video work and things like that. That would be your really large ones. Your typical office, if you're an accountant, if you're a lawyer, if you're a manufacturing facility, if you're a service facility, you're generating megs per day typically, not gigabits and not terabytes. So plenty of time overnight to get those files, and like I say, actually getting them to back up is it's not that long a process. So we can talk about restore now. Now, restoring is a different animal. To restore typically takes 3 to 4 times longer than the backup itself. And in fact, in a disaster recovery, the restore from the backup typically gets to be the long pole in the tent. And the reason for this is that of the revisioning. Remember, we're backing up every night incremental. So all the incremental changes that have been made. So the backup software has to make sure that all of those things are in order, and each incremental backup is synced properly with the one before and the one after. So this causes, quite a long delay in the restore process. So, if you've got 2 terabytes of data, it could easily take a day to let's say 3 days, even with today's recovery and today's technology, to recover that amount of data. Now, if you're looking at this screenshot right now, this is the ability we provide you to actually recover files that have been deleted or lost or something like that yourselves. And in the case of recovering one of these files, you're talking about minutes, or even, if it's just a single file, you're talking 20, 30 seconds. So getting it from this perspective, file by file, is quite fast and quite easy. When you're talking about a full disaster recovery, then recovering your data from the scratch all the way through to the present day, especially if you've got a year's worth of data to recover, we've got to go down to the safe site storage and recover some of the files from those hard drives, and certainly it can take a little longer. Hopefully you never have to do that with today's technology. Really, if your IT company, and we do IT as well, managed services and things, but if your IT company is keeping up with all of the alerts coming through, and you have a hard drive going bad, typically everybody's got RAID configurations now, so you can pop in a new hard drive. You don't have to shut it down, you just pop the old one out, pop a new one in, and it'll rebuild itself. So having to use the entire disaster recovery feature of the backup software is not a common thing. If we do it once or twice a year, that would be a lot. More like, if we've been backing the customer up, 3 to 5 years, it's typically as those servers get old, that we start to see issues where you might have 2 drives fail, and then once you have 2 drives fail in a RAID, then you're at the disaster recovery stage. So, but anyway, what we provide is a really nice package. It's totally managed for you, and we'll even log in remotely and recover the files using the same GUI that we provide you if you'd like us to do that. We're a full service shop when it comes to your backup, and like I said, we monitor them, manage them every day. So I'm open for questions. I see in the chat box we've got a few questions coming in. I'm open for questions, and we'll stay here for the next 30 minutes answering those questions. If you'd like to find out more, please call us at 512-670-3930, or write us an email at sales@thin-nology.com. Thank you and have a great rest of your day. And like I said, we'll stay on the chat box here answering those questions as they come.